Yeah, so
Good afternoon. I'd like to call the,
struggling. That'll bring you out on ML.
okay. Good afternoon, evening. I'd like to call the Union County Board of Education October 4th meeting to order. I need a motion to go into closed session to prevent the disclosure of privileged student information pursuant to NCGS 143-31811A1 and under NCGS 115C-402 and FERPA 20 USC 1232G. Also, to prevent the disclosure of privileged personnel information pursuant to NCGS 143-31811A1 and under Chapter 115C, Article 21A of the North Carolina General Statutes, pursuant to NCGS 143-31811A3, to consult with an attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged, and to consider and give instructions concerning a potential or actual claim, administrative procedure, or judicial action. Title of action is Doe versus Union County Board of Education and Union County Board of Education versus Board of Trustees of the State Employees and Teachers Retirement System. And under NCGS 143-31810 and 11, to review minutes from prior closed session meetings.
Motion to go into closed session.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we will now go into closed session.
organize a 1-mile fun run for elementary students in order to collect uniforms and raise awareness for her cause. Emily maintains a blog that documents her journey, collection uniforms for students that cannot afford them, and she uses it to encourage people to get involved. Congratulations, Emily, for being named October's John H. Crowder Service Award winner.
Okay, Dr. Jones, the interim deputy superintendent for instructional programs. Dr. Jones, the interim deputy superintendent for instructional programs, will introduce our special guest who is being recognized tonight.
Good evening, Board of Education members and Dr. Houlihan. Tonight, we begin by being honored to recognize a very talented mathematics teacher from Forest Hills High School, Miss Lauren Balcom. Ms. Balcom has received a 2015 Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, presented by the National Science Foundation on behalf of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. The award recognizes outstanding teachers for their contributions to teaching and learning of mathematics and science. Ms. Balcom received a citation signed by President Obama and a $10,000 award from the National Science Foundation. She recently traveled to Washington, D.C. to receive an award at the ceremony. Ms. Balcom, if you will come forward. Congratulations, Ms. Balcom. We are proud of you. We will now recognize a very talented science teacher from Rocky River Elementary School who is a finalist for the very same award that Ms. Balcom just received. Adam Haas has been named a finalist for the 2016 Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. As you know, the award recognizes outstanding teachers for their contributions to teaching math and science. Mr. Haas, congratulations for being a finalist and best wishes to you. Congratulations again. And it is our honor and excitement to introduce the next group of educators. Dr. Kim Facin, principal of Central Academy of Technology and Arts, and her staff are here tonight because her school is one of only 329 schools recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School. The award recognizes high-performing schools for overall academic excellence or their progress in closing achievement gaps among student subgroups. Since its opening in 2006, the school has received numerous awards for academic excellence and its performing arts program. Just this year, it received state and national awards in theater and music, including winning 4 Bloomie Awards. CATA has also received an A+ rating from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and has had 100% graduation rate registered since 2014. The school will be recognized at an award ceremony November 7th and 8th in Washington, D.C. If you are a staff member from Central Academy, would you please stand and be recognized? Dr. Facin, congratulations to you and your staff. We are proud of you. Again, bravo to Central Academy staff. And that concludes our recognition this evening.
Okay, before we get to public comments, I'd like to recognize a special guest in the audience, Keith Cannon from Wingate University and his advanced news reporting class. Who's there? Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, public comments. 30 minutes has been allotted for public comments. Community members wishing to speak during public comments should state their name, address, and phone number prior to making other comments. The board will not hear in open session complaints about the performance of school personnel, personnel issues, confidential student issues. Individuals may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any person who is an appointed representative for a group may address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes. Should a community member wish to seek information or share items that may not be shared during public comments, our staff are available to address your concerns or provide information. Our deputy and assistant superintendents will stand as I introduce them. Dr. David Clark, Deputy Superintendent of Human Resources, and Dr. John Jones, Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Programs. Okay, the first one, Ms. Lauren Bockham.
I'm excited to be with you all today. I wanted to take some time to just reflect on the trip that I had when I went to DC. I had a lot of personal reflection and gain from it, and there were a lot of policies that were discussed while I was there that I felt like could greatly impact our student body. As I said before, my name is Lauren Bockham. I teach at Forest Hills High School, and one of the things I feel like we're all here to do is make an impact on students and make an impact on the world. I don't think we would be here if we weren't. And so first I want to say thank you for taking the time to be intentional about making that impact for students. I wish that I had the amount of power that you guys have to incorporate policy, because what I know as a math teacher is that exponentially we increase our effect on students when we're able to create policies that impact more students than just the ones I see in my classroom. One of the things I learned while I was at the National Science Foundation Next Generation Forum while we were there was just this incredible desire to make aware the inequities that we know exist inside of the classroom. And so on your desk, I've kind of placed these sheets here to kind of help us all agree these inequities exist in the classrooms and in schools across the nation. We know that students, 45% of the students that enter into public school all belong into this smaller subgroup that is underrepresented in STEM education. And we're not really sure what that reason is. So if a student is African American or Latino or Native American, we recognize that there's a much lower representation of those students actually making it into a STEM field. And then what we see in that funnel is students come into post-secondary education and they try to get into majors of STEM degrees and then actually try to engage into STEM fields. We see that only 10% of students in those subgroups actually make it into a STEM field major or a STEM field degree. And that's actually quite incredible, knowing that it's Make It in Union County week this week. We have such a great and diverse county, and we have all of these different programs that we're able to do inside of our schools. I think we are really trying to be the best and try to make sure that our students are impacted in a great way, but we recognize that there are still inequities. So as I speak for other STEM educators here in Union County, I recognize some of these inequalities that exist still even in my own classroom. So one of the things we recognize is that all schools aren't created equal. We want them to be. We would desperately love in a perfect world that be true. We know that students, as they enter into high school, there's ways that students are not always going to get into AP Calculus class. It's one of the classes that I teach. We also recognize that not all classes are created equal, and we wish that they were, but we recognize that they aren't. Even in my own classroom in AP Calculus at Forest Hills High School, we recognize that our populations are approximately 36% white, 33% Black, and 25% Latino, and about 4% other. But in my calculus class, I have 68% white students, and only 14% Black students, and 14% Latino students. and only 1% other. And there has to be a question about why that inequity exists. As educators, we have to continue to look at those inequities and figure out what the purpose is. And then how do we do something and put that into action? And one of the things that was greatly impressioned on me while I was there is how do we make an impact on our school? How do we make an impact on our district? How do we make an impact on the nation and our state as far as STEM education goes? One of the things they continue to talk about while we're there over and over again is this concept of active learning. Active learning is very similar to STEAM. It's not just students learning math, it's students doing math. So instead of me teaching them how to calculate a quadratic equation for them to figure out how high a fruit flies, we actually go outside and do it, actively learning mathematics, then pursuing the mathematics that exists. One of the initiatives that we were called to activate inside of our counties was Active Learning Day. It's happening on October 25th. And I would love to encourage educators, everybody in the room, to try to figure out different ways we can get into schools and encourage active learning, not just on October 25th specifically, but to actually get that into motion every single day so students are actively engaged in all of the STEAM classes that we experience. The other thing that was a big initiative that we were addressed on was computer science for all and STEAM for all. We recognize that not every student gets into AP Calculus. So how do we get those students into the upper level math courses if we know that after they graduate from high school, they're going to have less of a chance of getting into a mathematics degree? How do we make that impression on students so that they're actually impacted so we can continue to further and create more jobs in Union County that we can fill ourselves? It's almost as if we created our own vacuum. How do we go back and make sure that every single student that goes through a Union County school sees computer science, coding at some point? Because almost all of the jobs that we recognize now that are coming all incorporate computer science and coding into them. So these three initiatives are really important as we continue to pursue mathematics and STEAM education overall. Active learning, computer science for all, and STEAM for all, and making sure that our students have a chance to experience all of them. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, Guy Lemke.
Good evening. How y'all doing? Thank you for letting me come out and speak with you tonight. Unfortunately, I'm sure y'all are used to this, but I'm the substitute. My boss, Keith Cummins, actually made the appointment to come out and see me, so I'm subbing tonight for Keith, so take it easy on me, okay? But I want to briefly talk about, I work for the American Heart Association, and y'all have 22 schools that work with the American Heart Association within Union County School District. First and foremost, I'm here to say thank you. I wanted to let y'all know what an impact your schools are making and what an impact they're making with the research and development through Jump Rope for Heart and Hoops for Heart with the American Heart Association. Unfortunately, it's still the #1 killer in our country today, and it's the #2 killer with children 15 and under. So we are trying desperately to attack this disease, and working with your district has been nothing but superb. So thank you so much. And with that, with the 22 schools that participated this year, we were able to give back U.S. game certificates to keep the kids moving. Okay, it's an incentive that they get based on dollars coming in. And we were able to present over $10,000 to your school for U.S. games so that they could buy PE equipment and such. And also, we work with 22 different schools received Professional Development Award, SHAPE in North Carolina, AFERD memberships. So we were able to present that as well. So thank you so much. And really, what is most important tonight is that in the new Jump Rope for Heart era, we're constantly trying to get the kids moving, the kids exercising, the kids making better choices. So in this year's program, we have 3 different components that I think are outstanding and are health challenges. One is if the children participate in Jump Rope for Heart, they'll have 3 different challenges to take when they go on the website to register. One will be to drink more water. The other will be to exercise at least 60 minutes a day. The other will be able to choose fruits or vegetables on their plate at every meal. And then they'll be able to extend this challenge out through email, letting parents and siblings know I have taken the challenge. And that's an exciting piece for us, because we hopefully will be able to collect some data and then provide that back to y'all and your principals and your students to say X amount of students did X amount of hours above and beyond to try to make the Union County a little more healthier. So once again, the real reason I'm here is to say thank you. I appreciate you allowing us to work with your fine schools, and hopefully I did okay as a sub. So maybe you'll hire me. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to get a motion to approve our August 25th, 2016 and September 6th, 2016 minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Okay. Did you hear that, Ms. Malarkey? Yeah, let's get that. Any other comments? Do you have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Consent items. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're going to do the consent items all in one pot minus C. We'll do that one separately. So can I have a motion for A, B, and D? All those in favor? Aye. Now we need a motion for C.
Okay, motion for New Salem Elementary Sewer. I make a motion that because of the sewer treatment capacity at New Salem Elementary School needs to be expanded. The board has determined pursuant to section 115C-517 of the North Carolina General Statutes that additional land is necessary to accomplish this. The board hereby authorizes its attorneys to commence a condemnation proceeding to acquire approximately 15 acres adjacent to New Salem Elementary School. And the board hereby authorizes a deposit of $166,400 to be made as just compensation for the taking, which is based on the average of the two appraisals. And this comes from Facilities Committee, so it does not need a second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, school innovation presentation and recognition. Dr. Schroeder?
Good evening, Dr. Houlihan and school board members and staff, and thank you so much for allowing Cuthbertson High School to host tonight's meeting. It's exciting to share with you the many exciting things that we have going on here at Cuthbertson. Tonight's presentation is about technology and the integration of technology and how it has transformed classrooms, how it has transformed teaching and learning for our students. I can't think of a better way to show you how it's transformed students than by a video created by our students. We do have sound to the video. It worked earlier. It worked earlier. No, it worked earlier. It was working fine. While they are working on sound, we're going to continue. Joining me this evening are two of our teachers, Ms. Schultz and Mr. Milady, to share with you about how technology has transformed their classes.
My name is Maya Schultz, and I teach biology and forensics at Cuthbertson High School. One great advantage of technology is the power to create authentic learning activities that can be shared not just across a building, a district, a state, but even the world. Let me give you an example of such a project I designed along with a teacher at our sister school in Denmark. We wanted to develop a collaborative study that would pair American and Danish students together as they analyzed the health of 3 lakes, 2 in Denmark and 1 in the United States, the lake at Cane Creek Park. To do this, students analyzed factors such as turbidity, dissolved oxygen, and pH levels. They captured and classified organisms found living in the lakes, and they calculated the biotic index, or the health of each lake. They also compared the 3 lakes to determine why there was a difference in the health of each. Following a visit to the study site, lab groups were paired off with groups from the other country to exchange data as well as pictures of the organisms caught. We also participated in a whole class Skype in which students not only got a chance to discuss the differences between the lakes, but also got a chance to learn a little bit more about each other. For example, our students were surprised that the Danish students got to their study locations by riding their bicycles, whereas we took the bus. If I did not have a school district that supported technology, I could have had my students study Cane Creek Park in isolation, but they would have missed out on an international collaborative component that meant their learning involved much more than just the science of water quality. I would like to thank the superintendent, the school board, and the cabinet staff for supporting the use of technology integration so projects such as this can continue to be designed.
Good evening, my name is David Mulady. I'm an art teacher at Cuthbertson High School. This is my 20th year teaching, 19 of which I've been in UCPS. We all have an understanding that technology is second nature to students today. It is critical to engage 21st century learners with 21st century methods. But as a high school teacher, I have found it to be an intellectual challenge to incorporate technology into my art curriculum. As an art teacher who is trained in old-fashioned methods using these things called art history books and pen-to-paper writing, I found it challenging on a different level altogether. I've overcome these challenges with the support and leadership of UCPS administration. UCPS has provided computers for teachers, installed smart technologies in classrooms, and put laptops in the hands of the students. All of this has revolutionized, reinvigorated, and reinvented the way that I teach. Over the last few years, I've developed a course website, which I believe has enhanced student learning, kept student interest, engaged students with the subject, and provided opportunities for lifelong learning and growth. To be more specific, I have made some major changes to projects both large and small in scale. One of these projects began as one of those old-fashioned artist research activities, where I used to use art history books and textbooks to have students research a famous artist. Now I substitute the internet and web-based museum resources. In the past, I asked students to complete these kinds of assignments alone, but now I've augmented them to be a collaborative activity with students working together. These research tasks were once completed on paper using worksheets, but now I've modified it so that students create Google presentations or PowerPoints to pull together their research. Finally, I've redefined how students present their research. Students share their work by placing their presentations on a Google site and then complete an open and collaborative Google Doc critique form. This is just one way I've incorporated technology into my art curriculum, one way that technology has impacted my teaching. I found it to be an effective tool for student learning, but also believe it has a certain appeal to students. Working this way is second nature to them. I would like to thank the school board, the central office administration, and Dr. Houlihan for their continued encouragement and support of technology and making it a priority in Union County Public Schools.
While not quite on our side right now, technology is nonetheless beneficial to what we do here at Cuthbertson High School. And we want to thank you for your continued support, for the resources you provide, and through the training you provide to help us use technology for instruction and assessment. We will send you the video. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do.
use technology in the classroom every day, whether I'm using the smartboard as a way to use technology or I'm having the students use their computers.
I'm a math teacher, so I can have the problem written up already, and then I can work through the problems with the kids or have the students come up and work on the problems.
And virtual sticker that you remove and it shows the answer.
There's a very strong emphasis on technology in the classroom here at Cuthbertson. As a result, I think you see the learning inside the classroom has been greatly affected by the use of that technology.
Really good communication. I like to use Canvas. I like to put kids' projects on Canvas well ahead of time so they can see the guidelines, they can see the rubrics.
All the projects that they do on the computers, they save them digitally and turn them into Canvas as well.
It's like a day-to-day thing, they need it. It really helps to disperse and let everybody know what they're doing rather than saying it and some people not paying attention. It's always there on the laptop.
I also use Class Dojo on my computer and on my phone to award participation points for the students.
We can't physically go to Stonehenge, but we might be able to take a tour of Stonehenge online, be able to better understand the scale and the depth and the decision for that.
When we use the green screen for our world history projects, we kind of incorporate technology into every class with like the project.
Technology is very motivating for students. I think that they enjoy using technology as opposed to paper, pencil, or using a textbook.
I really think Google Drive and Google Classroom is actually a great system,
Premiere Pro and Adobe Photoshop.
Microsoft PowerPoint and Word.
Canvas, probably Kahoot.
Google Docs.
You really add a lot to my educational value.
Okay, thank you again. We'll now have our superintendent's report by Dr. Henry.
Leslie, did we not put prayer in on the agenda after the school presentation?
Oh, that's right, I did say 7, 8. Thank you. So, school prayer?
I will offer a motion to direct staff to develop the appropriate policy and procedures in order to reinitiate prayer in the Board of Education meeting agenda.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sides. Now we'll have superintendent report.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. See, last month I said thank you, Madam President, which I actually prefer a little bit better. Thank you, Madam Chair. So good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here. Members of the board and public. So about a week and a half ago, I finished my first month as superintendent here in UCPS. Had the chance to visit all 53 schools as well as other facilities like our transportation facility. And I just want to say publicly and on the record that I am deeply, deeply impressed with what's happening in Union County Public Schools. Are we where we need to be? Absolutely not. But we are doing some really fantastic things for kids. And we spent a lot of time in my first month and a half here really looking at a few items, including where have we been, where are we currently, and where do we need to go to get better. Technology, as you heard today from the folks here at Cuthbertson, is one area to be very celebratory. The fact that we have a computer into the hands of every kid from grades 3 through 12 is something to celebrate and to recognize. There are many, many school systems in the nation that don't have that in place. So from an equity standpoint, That is really a great thing for our kids and for our school system. I've been pushing staff and our teachers and our principals to really begin to think differently about our one-to-one initiative. Because we all know that at the end of the day, getting the computers into the hands of kids cannot and should not be the answer or where we stop. What you heard tonight from Cuthbertson and what you'll see in thousands of teachers' classrooms like Ms. Balcom earlier today, it's not about the device, it's about how teachers and how kids are using the device to change the way teachers are teaching based on the way students are learning. And in many of our schools, I've seen it firsthand. I've seen project-based learning. I've seen research-based learning. I've seen the very types of things that you heard again from our teachers at Cuthbertson. But that is going to be a big, significant element that I think we as a county and as a school system need to continue to work on. Speaking of celebrations, recently, the past week and a half, we've been doing some more data analysis as to where we stand from a school system when it comes to academic performance. And I'm pleased to let the public and the board know that we've taken a look at the 10 largest school systems in this state. That would include your Charlotte Meck, your Wake County, Cabarrus, Johnston, the list goes on. And we've looked at the top 7 to 8 accountability indicators, everything ranging from graduation rate to grade level proficiency to college and career readiness, ACT, the list goes on. Of the top 10 school systems in this state and the state of North Carolina, Union County Public Schools ranks #1 in performance in almost every single one of them except for one, which is ACT Work Keys, which is an ACT test that's focused on career technical education. So I think that is something to celebrate. We continue to have one of the largest or highest graduation rates in the state. And I want to say a big shout out to our teachers, to our school leaders, and most importantly to our students for their hard work every day. And my hats are off to you. So I wanted to bring that recognition to the board's attention. We have 2 schools that earned a 100% graduation rate last year. That is Cata and Union County Early College. So I'll join those 2 principals here in October with the celebration at the Department of Public Instruction in Raleigh at the end of this month for a celebration. Throughout the past couple of weeks, we've also been hosting what I'm calling a listening and learning tour. This is a chance for myself and our team to get out into the public, to get into every cluster and really hear from our stakeholders about what's going on. I was at Porter Ridge High School on September 21st. I had the chance to meet with all of our central services staff on September 29th. Our next stop is next Monday. So if you're in the Sun Valley cluster, or even if you're not in the Sun Valley cluster, you're welcome to attend. Employees will be meeting with me at Sun Valley High School from 5 to 6, and then parents, community members, stakeholders from 6 to 7. The goal of these meetings is to hear about the positive things happening in Union County from our different stakeholder perspectives, but also to hear about ways that we can improve. And all of this feedback will drive into not just kind of my plan of action from an administrative standpoint, but also as we work collectively on a new strategic plan, my goal is to bring a lot of the feedback that we've heard from our communities into that planning process. Throughout the past month, we have been putting a major push on a thing called student attendance. September is Attendance Awareness Month across the nation. I want to give another big kudos to our principals and our administrators and our teachers for really joining with our parents and our community members to look at ways that we can promote attendance. We know that the only way that students can learn and be successful is if they're in school. And so we've made a major push from a communication standpoint through social media and other channels to make sure parents and our communities know the importance of kids being in school every day. There are several schools that really stood out to me. I think Wesley Chapel Elementary has instituted a tracking of attendance and a announcing of daily attendance rates. That's been a new initiative for them this year. Unionville Elementary was featured in the UC Weekly to discuss strategies that they've put into place to ensure students attend school every day. We launched 7 public service announcements, a website story, social media, the list kind of goes on. We're not going to stop here. Just because September was Attendance Awareness Month doesn't mean that we're going to stop as a system working with parents and working with our schools to make sure we all understand the importance of kids being in school every single day. Voter registration drives at our high schools have been taking place. I want to thank the League of Women Voters that have come in and partnered with us. Last week, we had voter registration drives at 6 of our high schools. 20 kids were registered, but last spring, the League of Women Voters worked in all of our high schools, and we had more than 600 high school students registered to vote. And as you all know, we have a pretty big election coming up right around the corner. There's a lot at stake here, not just locally, but as a nation, as a state, and as a country. We have a bond on the referendum. We want to encourage folks to vote. Early voting begins October the 20th. And voter registration ends October the 14th. My final 2 announcements, one is around school improvement plans. So at the November meeting, board members will be asked to approve our school-based school improvement plans. Teams have been meeting with parents, with their site-based decision-making committees, working on these plans that are submitted to the state on an annual basis. We plan to make those plans posted and available for board review no later than October 14th. So between October 14th and the November board meeting, you'll have a chance to review those plans and feel free to ask us any questions you might have about any school's particular plans for improvement. Finally, we have a little bit of weather that might be heading our way. And the board was sent this information earlier today. We want to make sure that our kids are safe. We don't know quite yet what's going to happen with the hurricane, but we know that it's on its way towards North Carolina. We've gone ahead and made some very key decisions, I think, that proactively make a lot of sense. And I want to thank Jared in the back and Sam Baisden and others on the team that have been working with law enforcement and local officials to help guide us. So I want to let the public know that all of our out-of-state travel has been canceled immediately through October the 9th. All of our overnight travel has been canceled immediately through October the 9th. Varsity football games will be moved to Thursday night as opposed to Friday night, in county and out of county, and decisions about Saturday events and Sunday, both athletic and community-based, we're going to be making those decisions no later than noon Thursday. So again, student, teacher, parent safety is paramount here. We do not want to put any of our kids in jeopardy in particular, and really want to encourage folks to stay at home this weekend. Don't go out unless you absolutely have to if it's an emergency. But I did want to let the public know those are decisions we've already made in the best interest of students. So unless you have any questions, that concludes my comments.
Madam Chair, I do have some questions. First of all, I want to commend the superintendent for the weekly reports that you provide to the board from you and from senior staff. I found that information to be most helpful. I do have some questions, particularly of some of the items that senior staff mentioned. What's the best way for me to ask those? Just fire away, or do you want to ask the individual to come up? Just questions about some of the information that they've listed in their reports.
It's not a lot, is it? It's not going to catch up.
No, just a couple.
Oh, okay. We'll see how it goes.
All right, I'll fire it away. How many bus drivers are we short right now?
I can answer that.
Who wants to take this one?
Do I hit the button?
Please.
Hello? We currently have 16 vacancies, but we also have 8 drivers that are out on FMLA. So that's those two numbers combined give you your total.
Okay.
16 vacancies and 8 others that are out.
Okay. Well, while I've got you up here, for the sake of expediency, if parents have an issue with their child's bus being habitually late or a problem or something like that, could you go over the proper protocol for a parent to, who do they call besides their Board of Education member to, exchange information, shall we say?
Every school is assigned an area specialist They can we have divided our transportation into zones, and every school has a transportation specialist. That's a good first point of call. And those area offices are located in each cluster, so it's a local contact.
So you call the school and they would know who that person is?
Yes.
They would direct them?
Yes. Most schools have an assistant principal that works directly with transportation also, so that's a safe call also. Mr. Marlon Watson also has been working with parents directly. So rather than give you one answer and risk not getting a response, I would start with the school, if not school, area, and if not area, Mr. Watson's office stands ready to respond.
I don't know if this is, our system is capable of this right now, but I just had one suggestion that if we could we set up sets under the ConnectEd system for each bus route? And if the administration knows of an issue with a bus route, a ConnectEd message would go out to all families in that, like bus 33 is broken down, we're sending something, but it's going to be a while. I don't know if our technology is capable of doing something like that, but that might be a good way, rather than this kid waiting at the bus stop for an hour and nothing shows up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have the capacity to do it. There are better ways that we're exploring to do that, but that is something that we can do. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask, and probably Dr. Jones is the right one on this one, if he could give a quick update on where we are with the Special Needs Advisory Council, getting that reformed.
Sure. Thank you very much. Ms. Janie Webb, the EC director, has sent out information. We had several parents that emailed us and said that they would like to be a part of this forum. She has contacted those parents as well. She's also reached out, as we lost the chair of that position last year, she's reached out to the ARC and a few other leaders about who would be willing to serve. That board, the agenda and the meeting is set by the members. It is member driven. So we're in the process of getting that and setting that meeting up.
Okay. And I noticed in your information that you and Mrs. Webb had worked with some groups or attempted to work on dyslexia and had met with some individuals. I can't remember if I forwarded to you. Did I forward the information about the contact at the Fletcher School and the NCID?
Yes, sir. And I forwarded that and shared that with our EC department. We actually met last Friday to talk about our emphasis in that area and looking. We don't have the specific information ready yet, but we are actually looking at hosting an information and a meeting here in Union County that's using accessing agencies that will provide information. So they're working on strategic plans and putting that in place for this year. But they've actually reached out to an organization, don't have it on the top of my head, that works with that. We did training last year, provided that for our teachers. We're providing training as well as to what that contact would be in the cluster as well. So we did meet, and I have notes I can share with you.
Is that training for teachers on a voluntary basis, or to designate, like, we know they're a brand new teacher, so we want them to have the training, or versus one who had it last year, you don't have it again this year? How's that decided?
So we have program specialists that work in each of our clusters that have the training as well and sharing, and then we have experts in our exceptional children's department that work with training with teachers, certainly teachers who are new or teachers new to us, as well as any teachers that certainly reach out with consensus of how we're promoting and furthering training. So we had the training last year. We will continue that into this year, and it's, again, strategic planning and goals that the EC department is working on.
Do we have the capability in-house, if a student is identified with dyslexia, to provide special training or help, or unfortunately, because of whatever reason, we have to, basically, we're in communication with the parents, but what internal assistance can we provide parents to help their children that suffer with this?
So through the IEP team, as well as the support from the teachers, there are strategies that are embedded for support that we have in the program to help parents and assist teachers in supporting students.
So Mr. Sides, if I can add to that as well. My personal belief on this, and I've shared this with Dr. Jones, is when it comes to things like dyslexia, It's great to have a central level team that can help identify, assess, and work with kids. I honestly think that we need to make sure that we have one teacher minimum at every one of our elementary schools in particular that is trained and certified. And so that's something that we're working towards as a goal for the beginning of the school year next year, if not now. And so the training that Dr. Jones is talking about, that's in essence something that we're trying to work towards.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. My last question, I guess it's for Tahara. I think she's around here somewhere. There you are. You had mentioned in your information, I was most curious, phone app that you're working on. Can you just kind of, what is your intention as far as what the capabilities of the phone app would be?
Yes, so last year about this time, we launched a mobile app, a Union County Public Schools app through SchoolWires when we launched a new website. Blackboard has now upgraded its app, and we are launching a brand new app. And actually, if you have the current app, it's already on your phone. You just don't have to re-download it again. But there are new features with this new app as far as news announcements, the way the stories are, the way families can follow their schools, information for parents. So there are couple of new little features, and the way the app is organized is very user-friendly. The last app was okay, but this one follows now like you would see on your Facebook or your Twitter feeds. And so it's a much more, I would think, vibrant app and much more an app that will give you a little bit more engaged.
How do I download? Just go to Google Play Store?
Yep, you go to Google Play Store or the app stores. It's a free app, Union County Public Schools, and you can download it. It was actually launched last week. We were working out a few kinks before we publicly shared it, but it is available.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my questions, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Want to have the budget update, Mr. Karpinski?
Good evening. We're going to wait for this PowerPoint to come up, but what we're going to do tonight is go over a budget update. We're going to kind of get you up to speed with what happened last year in terms of spending. Sound effects. And we will also tell you where we're at this year. And then, of course, kind of give you a look into the future for 17 through 19. We did get some information from the state that is a little concerning in terms of state budgets. There it is. Okay, very good. Budget update as of today, and it'll cover what happened last year in terms of what we spent compared to some state averages. And that is the first slide here. And we're talking about current expense here. We've been talking about how we spend compared to other systems in North Carolina. I think it's taken off on itself. But at any rate, we spent $7,700 per student, and the North Carolina average was $8,400. And that means it only, because we were 107 on 115, that means that only 8 districts spent less per pupil in current expense dollars. So that's pretty much a wrap up of our spending compared to state averages. And just to throw it out there, the national average is somewhere around $11,000. Now we'll get into this coming year. The Board of Education, of course, will adopt a budget ordinance, and we're planning on getting that to you all for the November board meeting. And essentially, we get many revisions throughout the year. This is based on revision number 9. It actually does not include an adjustment for charter schools yet. So these numbers will be adjusted for charter schools, and then throughout the year, we'll get different allotments revised, and that's why we have budget amendments, especially when we're getting more money or less money, or transfers when we need to move from one account to another. So as it stands, we're going to get about $226 million from the state, and it will be spent primarily in instructional programs and then some support services. Now, as far as the local budget, you all went through the budget process last year, and these are the Board of Education's priorities. Of course, number 1 is increasing student achievement and academic growth. That's been a thing that has been paramount. Some of the other things we got going on are our enrollment's increasing, or has been, and charter schools, our enrollment has been increasing as well. We've had 2 new charter schools open up, and then there was actually another one in Matthews that looks like they gained some of our Union County resident students. Compensation was a big push in this year's proposal to the county. We were successful in some of that, but competing with South Carolina, Charlotte Meck is very difficult. We lose teachers to South Carolina regularly, and we also lose them to Charlotte Meck. So that is a concern going forward. Local expense increases for state pay and other state employees. Essentially, what the state gives in terms of raises also has to be applied to the locally paid people. So everybody's considered a state paid employee. We are state employees, but we do have some that are paid out of the local fund, some paid out of the state fund, and we treat the locally paid people the same way we treat the state paid. But that is on the backs of the local appropriation. And then state mandated increases. Retirement rate went up 5.22%, and health insurance went up 3.44%. You know, going back to, you know, the state, when you consider all the increases that happened, an average of 4.7 for teachers, and the health insurance increase and retirement increase, we're essentially flat on the state budget. But sorry about that. We're going to go through the local budget and show some of these impacts. As you know, Union County Public Schools has been increasing, and we're starting to finalize our numbers, and it looks like we're not growing. We grew for many years, and you know, I don't know that I am privy to be able to say that looks like, based on the 20-a-day numbers, that still has a school or two that might have to work on the data. It looks like we went down 280 students. So
Dan, let me interject on that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would classify this as saying that the school system is not growing. What I would say is we don't quite know yet. As you all know, the budget is really developed based off of one of two numbers: your highest enrollment on the 20th or 40th day of school. And I've asked staff, historically, over the last 3 to 5 years, our 40-day numbers have historically been higher than our 20-day numbers. So while we may be down 200 kids compared to the 20th day last year, based on past performance, that number is expected to go up, or not to decrease, to get back to where on the plus side as opposed to the negative. So that's kind of our theory, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Right. Yeah, that's very important because we see it all the time. Either people come in later for whatever reason, they're moving in, or sometimes they'll go to a charter school and then they'll unroll from there and enroll with us. So we've seen the 40th day consistently be higher than the 20th day. So that still remains to be seen.
Do you have a projection when you'll see the 40-day numbers? When will you see the 40-day numbers?
Dan, when will the numbers be scrubbed?
I believe it'll be towards the beginning of November by the time we would have the numbers scrubbed.
So we get the 40-day numbers about 90 days out? Is that what?
Well, the way it works is we literally just got scrub numbers for the 20th day, so I'm adding a month to it. We're hoping to have it for the Finance Committee meeting on the 28th, but that remains to be seen.
Again, we are going to bring the budget resolution to the boards for the board's approval in November. That way, if there is fluctuation between 20 and 40 day, you'll know exactly what it is that you're voting on.
Are you going to release the 20-day numbers or send that out?
Absolutely. We'll send it to the board.
And once again, the main thing is that they get certified by the state, and I don't know that has happened yet. So as soon as they're certified by the state, we'll release those accordingly. Then we talk about charter schools' average projection, and we don't know. We still don't have all the information from charter schools. They're working on the same type of scenario that we are. I did not get invoices for all the charter schools that have Union County resident students. So although I think that this projection at the time, which was done back in May 15th was the date this was published, I don't suspect it'll be that high, but they are growing faster than we are still. Then, of course, local payments to charter schools. This graph at the time, which is back in May, was based on the premise that we were going to grow some students, charter schools, both of the new ones, we're going to grow nearly over 900 and full funding. So that number still is a projection, the last number for 16-17, but certainly every indication is that we're going to have to pay the charter schools significantly more. Right now, I would say is going to be greater than $5 million compared to the $4 million we spent last year. So now we'll get into the local general fund. Essentially what we try to do based on the uniform budget format is to mirror the state. And of course, the local accounts would have additional accounts so that we could use local flexibility. But essentially, we got the money from the county, and this includes money from the county appropriation, fines and forfeitures, and some rollover accounts. And, whoa. This is moving on me. I'm sorry about that. So once again, you have the revenues of the county appropriation, fines and forfeitures, and so on and so forth, and appropriations. Once again, instructional programs rule the day. However, support services, the state will not pay for maintenance, utilities. So that number for operational support services of $26 million, that is, in fact, a lot to do with maintenance, facilities, and utility expenditures. And we'll go into this in a pie chart a little later. Federal funds, once again, very flat. Those funds are 27-month grant funds. We have funds remaining from 2 years ago. We have the current year, and then we also have a grant that should last us 27 months. And that's why you see that you do have some unbudgeted funds to the tune of $1.3 million. Other special revenues, these revenues are for non-general K-12 expenditures. One of the biggest things that goes through there is NC pre-K funding for our pre-K students. We do have fiscal agencies going through there. We have restricted accounts, as well as our bus lease goes through that account as well. Then you have your instructional programs that are paid out of that, and those are noted on the bottom of the slide, as well as support services, which are very minimal in this particular area. Some unbudgeted funds for the RESA program, and a small amount of scholarships for a total of the $6.8 million. Well, when you add that up, the way the state looks at our numbers, they look at current expense dollars separate from capital outlay dollars or enterprise funds. So once again, our state money is the 226, federal money, the 13 and change, local county appropriation, so on and so forth, for a total of $343 million. Well, all the pie, as the pie indicates on the right, obviously the state source is the greatest source, local being second at 27%, and then federal sources of 4% really is a lot smaller from there on out, very insignificant beyond state, local, and federal sources. How is this money spent? The state looks at things two different ways. They look at it from purpose or object. This particular pie chart is by purpose, and as you can see, the overwhelming majority is instructional programs, and then 20% is supporting services. Well, what is supporting services? That's maintenance, transportation, facilities, utilities, once again. So that adds up very quickly. Our utility bill alone is like $10.4 million. So that's how the need grows in supporting services. And then, of course, the other items, non-program charges or charter school payments, that also goes into this chart. Typically, when we send information to the state, they don't include what we give to the charter schools because that's not our expenditure. So that wouldn't be in any reporting other than we made a payment to charter schools, but it wouldn't be included as one of our expenses. Next is by objects, salaries. We're very, very labor intensive. Pretty much all we do is related to teachers, teacher assistants, and many things going on in the classroom, as well as all other employees. So salaries, of course, is a big chunk of this, as well as employer-provided benefits. When you look at those two alone, that's where over 85% of our money goes. Then, like I talked about earlier, utility services to turn on the lights, water, sewer, garbage, that's $10.5 million. Supplies and materials, that goes right into the classroom. That's $24.8 million. So you can see a lot of our expenditures are going into people, which of course are helping students learn. And then of course the supplies and materials that go along with that. Capital outlay, I told you earlier that there's two funds, the current expense fund and the capital outlay. State law allows you to capitalize some current expense things, and that's because if you buy something that's worth over $5,000, they say put it in a capital code. That's all it is. So that's why you would see a minor amount of capital outlay there, but it could be a file server or a few file servers that add up to over $5,000, we capitalize it by putting it in the current expense fund in a capital code. And then, once again, the charter school payments at 3.784 budgeted. Now, if you think back to what I talked about earlier, that's not going to be enough to fund the charter schools. We only have 3.7 million in the budget, and right now I'm projecting that's going to be well over $5 million. So the Board of Education will have to make a decision on where we're going to come up with that money, potentially asking the commissioners. But either way, since it's going to be greater than 10% differential, we're going to have to go to the county commissioners because of the law that they imposed on us, which says we have to go to them to transfer money if it's greater than 10%.
Dan, can I interrupt for a second? I hope everybody understands that the money for charter schools flows through us. We basically do the accounting work for the charters. A charter school applies directly to the federal government for any federal grants, and they apply directly to the state for their state funding. But on a local level, it has to go through the school system. So, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we had a conversation about this. Dan's staff spends over 16 hours a month just doing the accounting work, and that's before the 2 latest charter schools were added, basically billing and keeping track for the charter schools what they are due, and then the money flows back through when you get it from the county, correct? So we had discussed, Dan and I had kind of a sidebar conversation with Senator Tucker at the last legislative breakfast, and we threw out the idea, let the charter schools, just like they do for the state and the federal government, let them apply directly with the county. It doesn't have to go through us. It would reduce a lag time. It would make our life some easier, and everybody be happier. So I think after the election, we need to organize another legislative breakfast. Senator Tucker seemed receptive to the idea, and I think we should put something together to propose local legislation. I don't want to try and change the whole state, but here, at least on a local level, as an experiment, to allow the charter schools to request their funding directly from the county finance office, just like we do, so that we're in partnership rather than chasing them down for paper. So I think long-term, there's a way maybe to do this a little better, and then it becomes easier for everybody to understand that we don't have to explain it's a budget item for us, but it's passing through. So if you cut that budget, it's got to come from somewhere else because we're legally obligated to pay that amount.
But now it wouldn't go away for us if we just did it for Union County because we have to pay to Mecklenburg schools, right?
Right now, we pay, I believe, 19, we're about to pay 19 charter schools, and they could be in Grandfather Mountain or Ace Academy, Socrates Academy. So it doesn't matter where they're located in North Carolina. It just matters that a Union County resident student attends there, and then sometimes I'll get bills from places I didn't even know we had children going and just get an invoice. So I think I got a pretty good handle on, all the charter schools that have Union County resident students but don't have the invoice. But typically what we'll do is pay them 1/12 of what we think it's going to be throughout the year, because we get our county appropriation in 1/12 installments. I'm obligated to give it to the charter schools, but the thing is, without an invoice or not knowing how many students they have, sometimes it takes until September or October to even get a bill to give them their money. But the goal is to get them 1/12 of their money starting in July and going forward.
So I get what Mr. Salvo said on local legislation. I just want to make sure that if we just impacted the Union County-based charter schools, we'd still have to have your staff making payments to schools outside of Union County, which would still.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to write the legislation. They're people that can do that the right way. Basically, what I want to do is take us out of the business of doing the accounting work and being the conduit for this money. Let's keep track of our money, and everybody else can keep track of their own money. And so wherever the bill's coming from, it would be their responsibility in Union County to collect it directly from the county, and we keep track, do our own accounting for our own students, and whatever charter school your child is in, and you're a resident of Union County, then it's the responsibility of that school to bill the county to get their funding rather than us. I mean, that big picture, that's all I'm saying.
If somebody else accounts for it, it would make my life easier. Yes, sir. At any rate, moving on to, unless there's any other questions, this is the expenditures by object, and obviously the salaries and benefits is a big chunk of that at over 85%. Okay, capital outlay. We have a budget for $33 million, and the big thing about that is the budget includes carryover dollars from last year. So a lot of times people will look at our budgets. Well, your budget for the last 5 years, and they'll go budget, add it all up and say, what'd you do with all the money? Well, it's a double counting in some respects. A lot of the work we do in the capital world ends up happening in July and August and September. Of course, the money we use for that was received the year before. So a lot of this money has already been spent in July, August, September, but it's carryover from the previous year.
I had a question about that, Dan. I know we got 16 million last year for capital. We got 17 million for this school year. So how many years are you estimating are in the 33 million? Is that 14, 15, 15, 16,
The majority,
16, 17?
That's correct. The majority of it is those 3 years. That's correct.
Okay.
The current year and 2 years back.
Okay, so this is approximately 3 years in this 33 million number.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Primarily, yes.
Because we have outstanding invoices that just haven't paid through yet.
That's right. Or sometimes
aren't
there may
complete.
be projects that go under budget and you have a little bit left, and that might have to go to another project, and you're waiting on that other project to go over. So to wean it out, our goal, of course, is to use the old money first and move forward, but that is a process, as you know.
And so this is money that is currently in our possession for capital, or we just turn it into the county on a project by project basis?
The latter. We do not get that money. That money sits in the county's coffers, and the only time we get that money is when we submit invoices.
So if a project comes under budget, the county still has possession of that money, we do not?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on, Child Nutrition Fund. That's pretty much, yeah, okay. We have sorry about that. Okay, there is a couple errors here, and I apologize for that, but this is actually the after-school program fund, so the title is wrong, but the data is correct. The tuition and fees is what we get from parents to keep their children in the after-school program. We get a minor amount of interest income, and then we have a small amount of fund balance appropriated. Of course, the community services, other services provided to K through 5 students after school hours till approximately 6 o'clock. And then the payments to other governmental units, that's payments to us so that they can turn the lights on and have water, sewer, garbage. And then the after school program, which should be labeled child nutrition, primarily we get, we get most of our money from the federal government, and that's for free and reduced students. Then we get local sources, which is the sales. as well as some fund balance appropriated. And then, of course, the nutrition services are the lunches provided, and certainly the salaries and benefits of the people providing those meals. And then once again, the payments to other units, which is us, for the indirect costs. And moving forward, unless there's any questions about this year's budget, of course, we'll be planning on having the Board of Education adopt the 16-17 budget ordinance at November's board meeting. We do have a finance committee meeting planned. So unless there's questions, I'll go into a brief statement or two on what we see going forward. We have never got a letter from the state budget director. It actually came from the budget director, and it was sent to all state departments, including DPI. And essentially, it's pretty much saying, y'all got to first cut your budgets by 2%, and then maybe you might get that 2% back. So we're looking at a flat scenario at best. All at the same time, they're saying we have to cut K through 3 class size ratios significantly. And we've done some of the math on that and/or got a chart on that, and that's going to be over 100 teachers. And then on top of that, teachers historically have got to renew their licenses for free. It may now cost them $35 to renew their licenses. And then a biggie in terms of our funding, as well as all the rest of it above it, is the anticipated continued reduction of low wealth. Low wealth this past year, we lost $1.35 million worth of low wealth dollars. And that's just simply because Union County Public Schools, Union County is becoming wealthier, and we're on the brink of not being a low wealth county anymore. That's formula driven, and there's nothing we can do about it, but essentially it's factor, or the formula is based on anticipated total county revenues, tax base per square mile, and per capita income. So the state generates all the numbers based on all the data they have, and we get a number. I'm fearful that if not within the next 2 years, maybe the following 2 years, we won't be low wealth. And I'm not fearful of that from an economic standpoint. I'm fearful of that from a funding standpoint of this low wealth. So that's just a heads up.
So I just want to add in closing, this is a really important slide for the board and the public to recognize, because the key word here is the word may. All of these things may happen. And I want to remind everyone, this is a legislative year. January the 11th is when the House and Senate will convene in Raleigh. And so depending on what happens with the election in November, these may become a may not. These may become a will. But I know that Madam Chair and other members of the board are going to be working on legislative priorities coming up here soon. We need the public and members of our board and administration to take a hard line in Raleigh. During this session, we've got to do our part, in my opinion, to make sure our legislators, our senators understand the needs of our school system, and if these kinds of decisions are made, what impact that will have at our local county level. I think the slide in this presentation that really hits home with me is one of the very first ones that talks about we rank 107 out of 115 from a spending perspective. 107 out of 115. What does that mean? Dan, what does that mean? We are pretty what?
We're lean.
We're lean. And we're still the highest performing system in the state. And I will continue to advocate for the right amount of resources that our kids need. I'll continue to advocate for what our teachers need and our principals need. And imagine what we could do as a system if not only we had the right quantity of resources, but actually evaluated the way that we're spending that quantity. So that is going to be a big level of commitment from the administration and moving forward. And I do want to say publicly that we look forward to working with the county and the county commissioners very early in the budget planning process. I've told our team we do not need to be in a position where their staff doesn't understand our needs until March, April, or May. Had a fantastic meeting with Cindy Cotto yesterday. We are going to really work together as partners, and we both have the commitment to work with each other staff to staff, and even beginning in November and December, coming together as teams at both the county level and the school system level to better understand where we are, what our needs are, and to give them a forecast as to possible priorities for the following school year and beyond. So I just wanted the board to understand and the public to understand this is a really important time that we're living in, and a lot can happen that can be positive for our kids or not so positive, depending on what the state legislature does in this year's session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kalinsky.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Houlihan. So next we have the Lenovo standardization. Of the Lenovo.
So let me give a quick update on this agenda item, which is the rescinding of the Lenovo standardization. In 2012, the board put forth what's called a standardization form for Lenovo, a company that has been providing us with laptops. At that point in time, there was a sole source, which is here called a standardization. As I've reviewed not just the contract, but also kind of where we are from a technology standpoint, we're 4 years down the line, and it is time for us to replace our administrators and our teachers' laptops. It's something that should have been done last year. We have the funding this year in the budget currently to make this happen. What I'm asking the board to do tonight is to rescind the standardization form, which will then give us the green light to issue an RFP. We'd like to see what other vendors are out there, Lenovo, Apple, whoever else might be that is interested in replying to this RFP. This week, we're going to bring in principals, other central office staff members, possibly a few teachers. They're going to work with us on the specification forms for the RFP. I personally want to see a difference in purchasing versus leasing. It's two different options. And so what I'm asking the board to do is to let us go ahead and issue that RFP. We can let it hit the streets by the end of this week is our goal. When the bids come in, we're going to form a cross-collaborative team. So the end user, i.e. the teachers in this case, the administrators, cross-collaborative teams from central office will come together, we'll review those bids, and we'll then make a recommendation to the superintendent and subsequently to the technology committee of the board, and then it will come to the full board. And so that process that I've just described is a process that for every item we need to bid based on state law to the public. I've directed our staff to make sure that is a process that we're following from this point forward. And so we are prepared to do that. We want to see what's out there, given the fact that we're 4 years after the contract. There is no consequence to doing this from a contract perspective. I just think that it's time for us to look at our other options and look at other variables, most importantly, new technology and cost.
Well, I'll make a motion that we rescind the Lenovo standardization and move forward with the RFP process.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Williams. So now we have policies for review. Huh? Oh, that's good. Oh my gosh, I'm just like writing on everything. The National School Board Association voting delegates. Last year we had 4 delegates and an alternate. So I am seeking volunteers. The actual delegation day is Wednesday, the 16th. November 16th. That's the conference is the full week. And I think we all have the agenda, but the delegate, if you can, we have to have, the 16th is when we actually have the voting. So don't all speak at once. We give the names and then we can make the motion.
I volunteer to be a delegate.
Okay, thank you. That's Ms. Merrill. I'm out of town that week for work. Mr. Sides.
All right.
Thank you. And Mrs. Harrell. And Ms. Helms, would you like to be an alternate? You'll be an alternate? Okay. So now I would entertain a motion to that effect. I can't, I'm out of town. It is, well, I figure since we have 7, we're gonna have Ms. Harrell, Mr. Sides, Ms. Merrill, Mr. Sides, Ms. Harrell, and alternate Christina Helms. Do we have to have 4? Is that what we had? Yeah, we don't have to, being that we've got 7. I think that's pretty. Ms. Helms.
One person has one vote, or you have 4 votes, no matter how many show.
Each member has 1 vote. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the delegates.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you so much. Now, policies for review.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Houlihan. We have some policies for review for you tonight. The first one is policy 133, naming schools and school facilities. And this one came as a recommendation actually from the policy committee to clarify the expenses that the group making the request would need to provide in the event that their request is granted to rename a facility. And it also provides that the district will provide a budget and scope at the outset so that there's not a confusion and not any confusion as to what the expense might be. Any questions on that?
Is this the appropriate time for a comment?
Certainly.
I have a issue with the administrative guidelines that go along with 1-33.
Okay.
In the naming of a school, and I believe it's also about the same down in for selecting name or specific areas and facilities other than schools. It says basically submitted to the committee following the principal, teacher, parent, member of the community, 3 members of the site-based team. Once the school level committee makes a recommendation, the superintendent may, in his or her discretion, forward the recommendation to the facilities committee for consideration. I would like that to be should instead of may in both instances.
And let me be clear with Mr. Side. So policy is what the board will be voting on eventually. The guidelines are going to be, we'll take the feedback and work on that. The reason that we put the word may in there is because ultimately it's going to be the superintendent's call to take it to the policy committee for consideration or the facilities committee for consideration. We'll take the feedback, but I think that flexibility is probably warranted in some situations.
I have a concern with this policy only because it's come up in facilities recently. When I read through this, and I know it's not part of the red notes here, but when I'm reading this policy, I could not determine if this is naming of a new school or if a group comes to you and wants to rename a school, an existing school that already has a name. So how can we, is that covered here, or should we word it so that we have a policy for naming a school versus renaming a group wanting to rename an existing school?
I think this policy would cover either, but I'll take that back to policy committee.
Please, because when I was reading this, it just sounded like it was more towards a new school versus a school that already has a name and a group would like to change it.
Certainly. I'll bring that to the policy committee. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll move on to organization of the purchasing function, 218. This is part of your regular review. And as is our practice, we pull policies from the draft policies from the school board associations with other districts and fill in places to make our policies more robust. And that's what the red is in this particular case. There's no questions on that. I will move on to contracts with the Board of Education, 219. This is also part of your regular review. And in this, there is one proposal by staff, and that's to reduce the contracts that principals can enter into from $10,000 to $5,000. And that is to comply policy with the practice that the finance department has been using at this time. There's no further questions. I'll move to grievance procedure for employees, 3-10. As you recall, you approved what is now policy 118 appeals. And in looking at this policy, it was not consistent with that policy. So these are changes to conform the two policies together. And if there's no further questions, that is all the policies for review tonight.
Okay, policies for approval.
Okay, the first one for your approval is 313, changing that title to nepotism. That came before you at the last board meeting. It's been to policy committee twice, and we will put that forward for you tonight.
On behalf of policy committee, I make a motion that we approve policy 3-13. Does not need a second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next one is policy 315, and what we're asking there is that the current version of 315 be struck, and I'll move on to the second piece of that. And that's been before you for review at the last Board of Education meeting, and it's been to policy committee twice.
On behalf of policy, I make a motion that we strike policy 3-15 gifts to employees.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Okay, the next policy is the substitute for policy 315, employee conflict of interest. This policy came before you at the last Board of Education meeting. It's been to the policy committee twice, and if you see what is on the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 in blue font is what has been added since it was here before you last. And that is here, and that's just clarification of employees engaging in outside employment and what the expectations are if you're going to take a job outside of your regular employment, that it doesn't conflict with your day job, you don't use information that you know of from your day job to support your second job, etc. And that is here for your approval tonight.
I make a motion that we put in place policy 3-15, employee conflict of interest.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next policy before you tonight is 316 leave. If you recall, this is part of your regular review, and what we've done in this policy is remove the explanatory language and refer people to the benefits manual of the school district as well as the state so that it is more up to date at all times. And this is here for your approval.
I make a motion that we approve policy 3-16 leave.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next policy before you is Administration of Medicines, 4-6. And that just has some minor changes to correct some terminology and clarify field trips.
I make a motion that we approve policy 4-6, Administration of Medicines.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Mr. Sy? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Okay, last but not least is student promotion and accountability, 512. And as you recall, that was before you last month and went to policy committee twice. This is a change that's required by the state board. If we are going to allow students to retake previously passed or failed courses, it has to be in policy. And so this is here for your approval.
I make a motion that we approve policy 5-12, student promotion and accountability.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, I don't think we had any closed session decisions that we had to make. We had to make the one. No, right, yes, correct. Okay, board comments? Yes. I'll start. I want to thank Dr. Schroeder for a lovely time tonight. And the food was delicious. Thank you so much for your hospitality. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that we are going to be at the Waxhaw Town Hall tomorrow at 6:30, and we are going to be educating on the bond, but also SPCC and the library will be presenting too. So that will be an opportunity tomorrow. It's at the Waxhaw Town Hall at 6:30. And you'll be able to hear about information for all three bonds. So come out and get your education on the bond. Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Cuthbertson, for hosting us tonight. Obviously, this is a great bit of wealth and knowledge here. There's been several great things that happened at Cuthbertson. We had the governor come in. It was right at 4 years ago and sign into law the, I can't remember which House bill it was, for technology. We did that here just a couple of years ago. They had the John Lennon bus here just a couple of years ago. So there's obvious great things going on in this school. Congratulations to you and your students. It is well deserved.
Hey, Dr. Schroeder, thank you for the evening. Thank you to your staff, to everyone who helped out with dinner tonight. As Ms. Boyd said, it was delicious. The company was delicious. I had a chance to sit down and have dinner with a number of teachers my daughter has had here in the Cuthbertson cluster, and it was very exciting to just share stories and hear what my daughter's really like in school. So it was good. Thank you again for the evening.
Dr. Schroeder, thank you very much for having us tonight, and thank you to our site-based team and all the parents that provided a wonderful meal for us. This has been a very busy past month, and I want to thank my fellow board members for all of the town hall meetings and stuff that you went to. We have attended Fairview, I believe maybe Unionville. I personally got to attend the Rotary Club last week and speak to them on the bond. Stallings Town Hall, Lake Park, Hemi Bridge, and Tahira and Dr. Jones. And thank you to all the staff for making sure that someone was with us at all of these bond presentations. But board members, thank you very much, because it's time away from our families in the evening. And it takes a lot of effort to get out there and answer all the questions and talk to everyone, the taxpayers, about something that's so important on November 8th. And I finally would like to congratulate CATA. This was a very exciting time to be one of 329 schools across the country to be recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School. Only 8 schools in North Carolina received this honor, and we are extremely proud of everything that's going on at CATA. And it was exciting for the board members that were able to be with your school last week. So congratulations, CATA.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. I also want to thank the good folks at Cuthbertson for your hospitality tonight. And let me start with a disclaimer that the following comments are mine and mine alone. Now that it's close to election time in the education arena, neighborhood schools are kind of one of the buzzwords that you hear. But
I think it's time for action rather than just words. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly state my intention that when the new Board of Education is seated in December, I will offer a motion for UCPS to initiate a plan for student realignment based on neighborhood schools. Personally, I believe it's an abomination, particularly for our elementary students that have to be at school as early as 7:30, that they should attend anything but the school nearest their home. My motion will include the following 3 caveats. First of all, there are a lot of families that have been moved around multiple times in the past few years. I will strongly recommend that this plan involved a grandfathering provision that if you want to stay where you are, you can. No questions asked. Number 2, I will ask that a citizens panel be empowered to be involved in the process from day one, rather than sprung on them at the last moment. 3, if at all possible, I would recommend that we engage the services of a professional, such as a Dr. McKibben, to use the most scientific and impartial methods to develop the best plan. But I'm just one of 9. But if you agree that this is an important opportunity for UCPS, I encourage you to question the candidates that are running this November. We also have a bond on the ballot in November, in case you haven't heard. In my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, that this bond and the capacity it provides in some of our highest growth areas, such as Porter Ridge High, Middle, Piedmont, goes hand in hand with a successful implementation of neighborhood schools. It would be a tragedy if we develop a solid neighborhood plan that is sabotaged because we don't have the capacity and we have to cap schools or crowd classrooms. I ask for your consideration in this opportunity and wish everyone a good evening.
Okay, there are any announcements?
The Finance Committee meeting will be meeting on October 28th at 7:30 a.m. in the boardroom.
And facilities will meet November 22nd at 8 a.m. in the boardroom. I'm sorry, November.
October.
October.
We're not
October. No, let's do it November too. October. Thank you.
Policy will meet on the 21st at 8:30 at central office. And curriculum will meet on the 11th at 1 p.m. at the EDC.
Okay, so now we've come to the time. Need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.